Our conservative estimate is that at least 1,400 individual children in Rotherham were victims of sexual exploitation over the 16 years. By victims, we are not talking about children who were at risk of sexual exploitation, who were friendly with victims, or who moved in the same circle. The 1,400 victims are those who had actually experienced sexual exploitation, as I have just defined it. We estimate that 1/3 of them were already known to services on account of neglect or child protection. It is hard to describe the appalling nature of the abuse the child victims suffered. They were raped by multiple perpetrators. They were trafficked to other towns and cities in the north of England. They were abducted, beaten, and intimidated. There were examples of children being doused with petrol and threatened with being set alight. They were threatened with guns, made to witness brutally violent rapes, and threatened they would be the next if they told anyone. Girls as young as 11 were raped by large numbers of male perpetrators. The detail of this information and the 15 pen pictures of exploited children, which we include in Chapter 5 of the report, were all taken from official records, files, and minutes. And we could have described many other children whose experiences were just as awful. Evidence of sexual exploitation of children in Rotherham emerged in the middle to late 1990s. A council youth service called Risky Business made the evidence known to the police and social services, not least by referring young people who needed the help which only the statutory services could provide. In most cases, especially in the early days, the evidence was disbelieved, suppressed, or ignored. In the early to mid-2000s, sexual exploitation seemed to have little priority in either service. Child victims were often blamed for what had happened to them, while no action was taken against the perpetrators. It did not seem to occur to many of those involved that any kind of sexual activity with a child is a crime, meriting investigation and prosecution. In Chapter 10, we set out the findings of 3 reports which described the nature and growing extent of sexual exploitation in Rotherham in the early 2000s. The reports were submitted to the police and social services and were ignored. In one case, the author was punished for speaking truth to power.